Hi, I'm Greg, your car angel. Whether you are interested in a cargo van for business or for doing a build out with a conversion, you have a few choices. You have the Dodge ProMaster, the Ford Transit, and the Mercedes Sprinter. In this video, I'll focus only on the Sprinter. The Sprinter is one of the most time-tested vans out there and have proven themselves in many ways. FedEx built their entire business using the Freightliner series of the Sprinter, and they had great success with it. For non-FedEx drivers like us, they are the best vans for a tradesman, and of course, they are great and very popular for camper conversions. Before I dig in, I want to mention the many quality Facebook forums like Sprinter Vans T1N, Sprinter Build Out International, and SprinterSource.com. These are available with highly skilled people who are great mechanics and have intimate knowledge of Sprinter maintenance and repair. If you have any questions about anything Sprinter related, I really encourage you to search these forums out, and you'll find the topics have been thoroughly explained by these experts. You'll find other YouTubers like Florida Van Man and Zimalita, and they've made lots of videos on just about everything Sprinter related. They and many others are a wealth of knowledge and experience. Now, my attempt here is to try to give you a broad but comprehensive overview of the Sprinter history and what you can expect to encounter in your Sprinter inspections and ownership. Each generation of Sprinters has major and minor weak points, some severe while others easy to fix. There were 3 generations of the Sprinter throughout the years, and I'll go through each generation and share what I've learned having gone through the exhaustive search for buying my own Sprinter and doing many inspections along the way. I do all my own maintenance, so I'll also share with you what you can expect to see in terms of repairs as the van ages. I'll start with the original Sprinter, which is Generation 1 T1N, which ran between the years 1997 and 2006, but only came to the American shores in 2002, and that was shortly after the Daimler-Chrysler merger in 1998. The T1N stands for Transporter 1 Neu, which is German for Transporter 1 New. It's funny how the German language always chooses technical terms over creative ones. Anyways, the T1N came in 2 chassis types, the 2500 and the 3500. And in Europe, it was known as the 316 and the 416 respectively, but they were all built in Dusseldorf, Germany, with final assembly in the United States to avoid the 25% chicken tax for the cargo versions. The chicken tax was implemented in 1964 as a retaliation against the German and French governments for their tariffs on American chicken. It was a bit of a tit for tat that still exists to this day, though now it's down to only 2%. The American 2002 and 2003 Sprinters were equipped with the non-EGR 2.7 OM612 engines, with the 2004 and 2006 Sprinters getting the NAFTA-approved OM647 engines, which were a bit more efficient. Same basic engine with minor changes, and these engines were incredibly efficient. It's really common to get 23 to 25 miles per gallon, which is quite impressive when you consider how big these rigs really are. Now, many people consider the OM647 engine, which is in this 2006 model, one of the very best diesel engines Mercedes ever produced. Clocking 400,000 miles is not uncommon, while some have gone 1,000,000 miles. Now, that's no easy feat. However, to achieve such incredible reliability, there were very specific maintenance items to look out for. A key inspection technique to use when buying any diesel-powered vehicle, especially a Sprinter van, is to make sure that you start the engine dead cold when you're inspecting it. Now, that might mean that you have to request this from the seller to not start it before you look at the van for inspection. Now, you're also going to look for dark smoke coming from the exhaust on that cold startup. If the van starts up dead cold after 2 to 3 cranks and then settles down into a nice even idle, that means your compression is good and even on all cylinders. If it takes longer than 2 to 3 cranks, or it doesn't settle down into a nice even idle straight away, then you know that your engine is getting old.
To perform the cap dance test, you simply loosen the oil cap while the engine is running. Now the cap should sit quietly on top without dancing around. This is what it should look like. Now if the cap does dance around, it would mean that the engine is tired and you should move on.
Now the most unfortunate problem the Sprinter had absolutely nothing to do with the engine. Maybe it was the marriage that became known as Daimler Chrysler, but what ended up happening was they took an extremely reliable and long-lasting Mercedes-Benz engine and transmission and placed it into a fragile eggshell of a Dodge body. Look everywhere you want, but you will have to limit your searches to dry areas or the southwestern part of the United States to find one that is not rusted beyond belief. Now that's where I found this one. In all of my other inspections, it is as though the paint on the van would just start melting off and rust would instantly appear. And you have to really be careful the difference between superficial rust and core rust. So that is the very first thing you should look out for when buying a T1N. Rust, rust, rust. From the seams on the roof to the delamination on the rails on the body and everything in between. Rust will creep in. It's a shame, really. That's just one of the reasons the T1N Sprinter has shot up so much in value. There's simply not a whole lot of them out there that survive the rust issue, and there's plenty of demand due to the reliability of the engine and transmission, and also people converting these vans into campers. This is my personal van that I'm converting into a camper. Now the first thing I did when I bought it was to do a serious undercoating project. Now it only has 90,000 miles, and doing this treatment will no doubt add at least another decade to the lifespan of the rig. Now I also soundproofed the interior floor to ceiling with rattle trap. Adding this at the beginning of my build out has significantly improved the otherwise raucous cabin noise, which can be very irritating if you don't do that. Let's get into the other problems of the T1N. Now before I get into that, I just want to say a good tool to have handy is the iCarSoft Mercedes-Benz 2 code reader. Basically this tool can read Mercedes codes very well and can go really deep into the ECM. So having one of those, whether you're inspecting, purchasing, or just having it as part of your toolkit when you own one, is really important. The term Black Death on this particular engine is a major problem in Sprinters, and it really can be avoided if detected early. Now, calling it Black Death is not because it's the end of the engine, but it has more to do with improper maintenance or a poor injector repair that ended up causing it, like stripped hold-down bolts or where someone used the old copper seals on the injector. It's quite easy to check your engine for Black Death by simply taking off the 7 bolts on the top cover.
After you remove the top cover, you want to inspect it for Black Death. This is where it's located. Now this is a good example of a healthy fuel injector environment. You can see that there's absolutely no Black Death here. This is what you're looking for.
Now, once Black Death does get out of control, it's not the end of the engine. It just takes time to thoroughly clean it up and repair the leak at the source, which would be new injectors. Another common problem that always shows up over time is the plastic turbo resonator, which separates at the seam. Loss of power, poor fuel economy are sure signs that something is wrong. Now there are inexpensive fixes, one of them being an aluminum replacement, which is what I installed on my van. But what you do not want to do is replace it with another cheap Mercedes plastic one. Those are junk. Another major weakness of the van is the front catalytic converter. It has 2. Now like the rest of the van, it's prone to rust, so go figure. The problem with this repair is that in smog states such as California, you can only replace the cat with an OEM. However, you have to purchase the entire OEM exhaust system, which runs into thousands and thousands of dollars. In non-smog states, you can simply cut out the old rusted cat and replace it with a straight pipe at a fraction of that price, and the van would run perfectly. There are also a couple of weak points in the cabin area. Now, you'll have intermittent electric problems that show up on the Sprinter, and they're usually traceable to the corrosion in the fuse box distribution module located under the steering wheel. Other common problems are broken vents and stiff, non-functioning control knobs. When you drive a T1N, you might notice that there's a rumbling strip feeling that comes like as though you're going over a rumble strip that's coming up and vibrating through into the cabin. Now, that's when you would be coming down from like 50 miles an hour up to about 20, and that's when you're decelerating. Now, there is a remedy for this, and I'll leave a link in the description below. It's a very easy fix, and I would highly suggest that you do that if it bothers you. Now, there are many other repairs that you might encounter as the miles pile up, but like so many other repairs on the T1N, they're really easy to diagnose and repair. And that is what separates the T1N from these other generations. They are simple, reliable, easy to work on, and if you can find one that is rust-free, it'll last you a very long time. The second generation Sprinter, named the NCV3, which is short for New Concept Van 3, was released in 2007 and ran through 2018 with a refresh in 2014, which I'll get to a little bit later. Now, that was a long run. It was totally redesigned from the ground up from the previous generation, and it had a couple of very serious gremlins that were hard for people and hapless Mercedes-Benz dealers to pin down and fix. I call this the death triangle, which is the DEF system, the DPF system, and the NOx sensors. Now, let's start with the DEF system. Now, this system cleans the diesel exhaust to lower emissions, and the DEF reservoir needs to be constantly topped off like every couple of thousand miles. Otherwise, the van will go into the dreaded limp mode, giving you only a short 10 restarts before disabling the van entirely. Now, the problem was that there is no indicator on the dash showing the DEF levels. Now, many owners unwittingly would get low and all hell would break loose, and they wouldn't even know why. Further complicating the problem was that the DEF filler cap, which looks a whole lot like a windshield washer cap because it's blue, and it even has a symbol that looks vaguely like a windshield. Now, an unsuspecting owner or perhaps a clueless gas station attendant or an undertrained mechanic could easily mistake the two and instantly kill the DEF system by filling it with windshield washer fluid. Now, you need to use the correct DEF fluid, which is a strict ratio of 32.5% urea and 67.5% deionized water. Now we go to the next part of the triangle, which is a serious problem on the NCV3, is the diesel particulate filter. Now this is the DPF. Now this is sort of like a pre-cat filter, and it had a nasty problem of getting clogged, especially on rigs that were city driven with lots and lots of idling. Now under these circumstances, the DPF would not cycle through the regeneration process that was designed to clean it up by burning away the particulates. Not given a chance to work at its full potential, it would fail, and with a very high price tag for replacement. Once that filter gets clogged, it would also affect the NOx sensors, which would fail, and on and on. One is on the upstream and one downstream from the cat. Now they are responsible in communicating the nitrous oxide levels, and they do not play nice with the DEF system if it gets low, or the DPF system if it gets clogged up. Now, like I said, there was a refresh in 2014. This is a 2016, and it improved the van in many ways, especially with safety features and better paintwork, which was really, really important. But the same death triangle continued, as all three of the systems were the same as in the previous years. Now you can look and see that this 2016 has a different look from the earlier pre-refresh years, in that the grille is higher and the bumper comes all the way up, the plastic on the bumper comes all the way up and meets the headlight. So those were the changes aesthetically that you can tell from the 2013 to the 2014. In 2019, Mercedes introduced the European designed and fully American built third generation VS30 Sprinter. For this new generation, Mercedes kept everything that was good on the previous generation and improved on the things that it could. Notably, the Distronic system was a much needed upgrade, allowing the cruise control to be dynamic. Now, many buyers will find Distronic feature very useful on long drives, which is the way most Sprinter owners drive. The newest Sprinter is roomier, more comfortable, and tuned to a smoother ride. It also came loaded with a lot of safety equipment and featured the new optional MBUX system with a new touchscreen display alongside Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I'm sure a lot of people were looking for that. Like many German automakers who were late to the beverage security game, Mercedes finally got the memo and loaded this up with 10 cup holders, including a couple American-style jumbo-size 7-Eleven cup holders. At 15 miles per gallon average, the fuel efficiency is pretty dismal, especially when you compare it to the frugal T1N. But it is a bigger, bolder, heavier, and more complex van than the earlier generations, and for that, it is forgiven. Now, if you can stomach the price of the van, then it is really a great way to go. So these are the Sprinters. Which one is right for you is determined by a combination of your mechanical skills, your driving habits, whether you're city or highway, and maybe most important, your budget. As for me, simple is better, and I'm quite happy with my good old-fashioned T1N, which is easy to fix, reliable, and easy to drive. I'm Greg, your car angel. Thanks so much for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.